Yeah, that's a really good question. What kinds of measures are we taking to prepare people for this, to safeguard the health of the congregation? Well, a couple of things. The first thing I think I need to throw out there is that I am convinced that I am not authorized as a pastor to tell people, to tell the congregation, that you can't worship or that you can worship. Ultimately, it's God that tells the congregation that they are to do that or not do that according to His word. So I do not have the authority as a pastor to say, no, you cannot come here and worship. So with that out on the table, one of the things that I've determined to do as the pastor of Victory Baptist Church is to leave worship attendance up to the conscience of the individual believer. So I have committed to being here on Sundays and working out my typical pastoral duties that I do every Sunday. And if members of the congregation want to join me as I do that, they are free to do so. So it's really up to the individual member of the church whether or not they want to attend. And I'm allowing them, or I'm letting them make that decision for themselves. I'm not telling them what's best for their health. I'm not telling them that it's best for their health or best for their welfare to not come here and worship. So it's up to them if they would like to come here and attend as I work through my daily or every Sunday pastoral duties. Another thing that we're trying to do is we're trying to be conscious as individuals walking around this facility of the fact that there is an illness spreading throughout our nation, spreading throughout the world, really. And so we want to not give away common sense, and we have provided points throughout the building where a person can wash their hands. Everyone is understanding that they need to be washing their hands. Everyone understands that they need to be washing their hands frequently, that they need to be maintaining responsible distances from one another. 3 feet is really the average distance that people maintain here in the auditorium. Outside, we are afforded the opportunity to maintain those distances as the congregation so desires as well. So that's kind of how we have decided to go about this as a congregation. The other question is, how am I seeing God work through the spread of COVID-19 and the government overreach that has been so apparent as a result of that spread? And there are a few different things that I've seen, and obviously I need to make the qualification that I don't know all the ways God is going to work in this situation. I cannot possibly predict a thing. And I'm probably not even thinking about all the ways that are really obvious or should be obvious. But I do have a few here for you that I think should be an encouragement. Number one, families are being forced to be closer together. And it's very sad that I even have to use that kind of language, that families have to be forced to be closer together. But one of the things that's happening now is, with all these quarantine measures and these lockdowns and these stay-at-home orders, regardless of their legalities and whether or not they're constitutional, etc., you have families that are going to be together for a prolonged period of time. At minimum, it's going to be about 30 days. At maximum, I've heard numbers like 18 weeks. And so you're going to have families that are going to be together. They're going to be habitating with one another for a prolonged period of time. And I think that is a very positive thing. I think you're going to see an increase in the strength of the family unit, both secular and sacred. You're going to have even secular families who are not religiously affiliated become closer to one another. And that's important for the health of our democratic republic as a nation. I once went to Plymouth and up there in Massachusetts. And just if you drive out of downtown Plymouth, which is where the Plymouth Plantation of the Pilgrims used to be, there is a massive statue up on a hill just kind of outside of the downtown area. And it is about 60 feet tall, has a lady standing on top of it, and she is pointing to heaven. And all around it are different images and different kinds of statues showing what are the ingredients that go into a nation like ours? And one of those things, one of those ingredients, if you will, is a mother teaching her child. Okay? And so I think with the closures of the schools and with kids being forced to stay home and with families being forced to stay together, you're going to see a jump, hopefully, prayerfully, in the integrity of the foundational building block of the family unit. You're going to see mothers hopefully stepping up and teaching their children during this lockdown period. You're going to see perhaps fathers taking more of an interest in their families. And you're going to have parents hopefully rekindle some aspects of their relationship that have been lapsed as a result of their busy work schedules. And those are all powerful things. Those are all very important things to consider, how this is going to help the family unit and thereby glorify God in this society. The other thing this is doing is it's causing Christians to ask important questions. One of the dilemmas that we're not used to as contemporary Christians in the 21st century is the idea of if you obey, you die, right? And so we're beginning to ask these questions as a church. How far am I to go in obeying God? These are good questions. No matter where you currently come down at, chances are, especially if you're a pastor, you've been asking these kinds of questions. And there's room, obviously, to disagree in a lot of these areas. But the important thing is, and I think the providential instance that we're seeing is that the church in general is being forced to wrestle with these questions. How far do I go in my obedience to God? Those are all questions that I've had to wrestle with personally, that many of you are having to wrestle with. Is the common good a reason to stop public worship? Is the common good a reason to stop public worship? For Christians of the past, loving neighbor wasn't necessarily trying to stop worship so that they could avoid being persecuted by the Roman authorities. And that's not the case in the Middle East today, where there is a persecuted church, and in China and North Korea, elsewhere. It's not necessarily that. How to love neighbor is really defined by Scripture. And how to love neighbor is to obey God in your relationships with neighbor. And so there may be a lot of emotional reaction to the spread of this thing and the government lockdowns and things of that nature. But we need to be wrestling with the question, and I think we are wrestling with the question, how far do we go? What does it mean to love our neighbors, first of all? And how far do we go in worshiping God to ensure that we remain obedient to Him? The most important question we could ask is not, how do I keep my neighbor healthy, right? How do I keep my neighbor healthy? There are many ways to do that. And if that was the question we were asking, we ought to be sharing diet plans at church. The question we need to be asking is, how do we obey God, right? How do we obey God? Anyways, thank you guys for tuning in. I'm glad I had the opportunity to be able to do this video and answer a couple of these questions. Please, if you appreciated this video, hit the subscribe button down below. If you liked it, give me a thumbs up. If not, give me a thumbs down, but let me know why in the comments. God bless you guys. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Enjoy quarantine by glorifying God and enjoying Him.